The moment you stop being available, people start feeling your weight. That is the part most people never understand until they experience it for themselves. They think being constantly there makes them valuable. They think quick replies build respect. They think always explaining, always showing up, always smoothing things over makes their presence stronger. But often it does the opposite. It makes them easy to reach, easy to read, easy to expect. And anything that becomes too expected slowly loses its impact. That is how many people disappear without leaving. Not physically, psychologically. They are present everywhere, but felt nowhere. They answer every message, fix every misunderstanding, react to every shift in energy, and over time, their presence stops feeling chosen. It starts feeling automatic, like background light, always there, rarely noticed. This is the hidden cost of constant availability. The more people know they can reach you at any time, the less your attention feels like something real was given. The more predictable your reactions become, the less others have to consider how they approach you. Not because they are evil, because human beings adapt quickly to whatever is always there. Familiarity removes friction, and when friction disappears completely, value often fades with it. Carl Jung said the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But that becomes difficult when your reactions no longer belong to you, when every tone shift pulls a response out of you, when every silence makes you move, when every misunderstanding makes you rush to explain. At that point, you are no longer choosing how you engage. You are being managed by the moment. That is where the real problem begins. Most people do not notice it at first. It slips in through repetition. A fast reply here, an explanation there, a need to resolve tension immediately. A habit of stepping forward every time someone pulls back. None of it feels dramatic. It just feels normal. But what feels normal is often just what has been repeated the longest. And once a reaction has been practiced enough, it stops feeling like a choice. It starts feeling like identity. That is dangerous. Because the moment your default becomes constant responsiveness, your life starts being shaped by everything outside you. A message changes your mood. A delayed response changes your focus. A misunderstanding changes your entire internal state. You are no longer moving from center. You are moving from stimulus to stimulus. And when life is lived that way, control leaves quietly. This is why being too available becomes expensive. Not because generosity is bad, not because responsiveness is wrong, but because anything done automatically, without awareness, begins to drain the self. If your attention goes wherever it is pulled, then your attention no longer belongs to you. If your presence is always available, then your presence is no longer deliberate. And what is not deliberate eventually becomes cheap. Marcus Aurelius understood something that most people still resist. You always have the option not to engage. That sounds simple until you try to live it. Because not engaging creates discomfort. Silence feels dangerous at first. Not responding feels unnatural. Not correcting a misunderstanding feels like losing control. And that is exactly why the pause matters so much. It exposes how dependent you have become on immediate reaction. The urge to react is not always about the situation itself. Often, it is about what the reaction protects. Your image, your need to be understood, your need to stay connected, your fear of being forgotten. That is why stepping back feels heavy. It does not just interrupt a pattern with others, it interrupts a pattern within yourself. But that interruption is where everything starts to change. The moment you pause instead of reacting, something appears that was not there before. Space. A small space between what happens and what you do. That space is power, because inside it, you are no longer running on habit. You are no longer repeating the same pattern automatically. You are choosing. At first, that choice feels awkward, even wrong. You do not answer immediately. You do not explain yourself. You do not rush to restore normality. And because people are used to the old version of you, the shift creates tension. Some notice, some push, some feel the absence of what used to be automatic. But that discomfort does not mean the new posture is wrong. It means the old pattern has been interrupted. And when a pattern breaks, reality becomes clearer. You start noticing who respected your time and who only expected it, who understood your silence and who panicked when they no longer had instant access, who valued your presence and who only valued your availability. These things were always there, but you could not see them clearly before because you were too busy maintaining the pattern yourself. That is why silence becomes so powerful. Not because silence is magical, but because silence reveals. It reveals people. It reveals dynamics. It reveals you. It shows you how much of your old behavior came from compulsion rather than intention. And once you see that clearly, the old way starts to feel harder to return to. This is where a deeper shift happens. Your energy stops being reactive and starts becoming directional. You no longer respond because something happened. You respond because you decided the moment deserves a response. That difference changes everything. Your words carry more weight because they are not constant. Your presence feels stronger because it is not assumed. Your absence becomes noticeable because your attention is no longer given by default. That is what most people misunderstand about value. They think value comes from giving more and more and more. But when giving becomes automatic, it stops being felt as giving. It becomes expectation, and expectation erases impact. The world does not always value what is most available. Very often, it values what is most intentional. Seneca wrote that it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. There is a connection here. Constant availability is often a form of craving. Craving to be included, craving to be needed, craving to be seen. But once you stop needing every interaction to confirm your place, something steadier begins to form. You stop reaching outwards so quickly. You stop letting every moment define your state. You begin to hold yourself differently. And that is when everything changes. Not because people suddenly become better, not because the world becomes softer, but because your relationship to attention changes. You stop trying to be everywhere. You stop reacting to everything. You stop explaining yourself into exhaustion. You stop managing every perception. You stop offering constant access. And in that absence, your presence becomes real again. This is not about becoming cold. It is not about punishing people with distance. It is about no longer giving yourself away without awareness. It is about reclaiming the space between stimulus and response. It is about becoming someone who chooses where energy goes instead of someone whose energy is claimed by whatever happens next. That kind of person moves differently, more slowly, more clearly, more intentionally. They are harder to rush, harder to read, harder to pull out of themselves. Not because they are closed, but because they are grounded. Their attention is not automatic. Their presence is not free. Their words are not spent carelessly. And once that becomes natural, life starts feeling different. Lighter but stronger. Quieter but clearer. You are no longer trying to maintain connection at all costs. You are no longer terrified of silence. You are no longer mistaking constant access for closeness. You become selective. You become deliberate. You become someone whose presence has weight because it is no longer given without thought. That is the real shift. The moment you stop being available, everything changes, because for the first time, your presence stops being assumed. And when presence stops being assumed, people start feeling it again,